how do you use Kanban in scaled agile framework for the development teams? Now you might have seen Kanban at various levels, at portfolio level, program level. At those levels, Kanban is more used to refine the portfolio backlog and program backlog, but at a development team level, Kanban is used to facilitate the complete development process. Now most of us are familiar with Scrum, and we know that we use Scrum for developing complex products. And in case when you are going into a big scale development and you realize that to support the whole development, maybe some team can get benefit from using Kanban. In my observation, I see the teams which provide either as a foundation to other teams or they work as an integrator of other team components may get benefit by using Kanban. Now, I am not at all recommending that they have to use Kanban, but if you see that the team find difficult to predict their work for 2 weeks for a sprint duration because their work is dependent on other teams' events. If other team faces some issue, other team faces some clarification, the team 4 get impacted, and it's difficult for them to predict the work with certainty for 2 weeks. In those cases, they may start using a flow-based system which supports other teams to achieve their own sprint objectives. So it's like this. In a 7-8 teams, you may have say 5 teams using Scrum and 2 teams using Kanban. And if you end up into those situations, how do you operate in that context in Scaled Agile framework? We explore that further. Now a little bit on Kanban. Kanban, as understood across, is more about visualizing work and workflow. In a Kanban space, we create various workflow stages which helps us in seeing how the work is moving from one stage to another stage. Kanban system also creates a pull mechanism by which it's not necessary a one person to assign a work to other person. The visualization of a work, visualization of inflow can make people act, and they can assign their own work as they find a capacity. So this is many times is seen with the help of some Kanban cards, or you can use a sticky notes for here. And a Kanban team may also has their own team backlog. So in a simple word, when we are talking about Scaled Agile framework context, when you go for your program increment meeting for a PI boundaries once in 10 weeks, the Kanban team also creates their team backlog in that particular meeting. Now the Kanban team's backlog may emerge more as things evolve, but during the initial stage, they do have things which they plan in their team backlog. Now on top of it, maybe every week, they look at their team backlog and plan things for a given week. So this is something they can do on a weekly basis. This is something they can do on a daily basis. This is something they can do on a 3 weeks basis. The idea is that is the flexibility the Kanban team will have. They not necessarily plan their work for every 2 weeks. Or it may happen they plan some type of work items, some type of works which is little bit long term development oriented. They plan it for 2 weeks, but there is other items which keeps emerging based on the demand of other teams. So they keep planning based on the flexibility they want to take, and they visualize things as they are going through various stages. So by creating this is like just an example. It's not like a recommendation that you need to have stages like this. Whatever stages make sense in their context, they create those stages and see how things move till an acceptance stage. In order to keep things moving, the way Kanban promotes across, the safe Kanban team also focuses on limiting work in progress. They limit work in progress at each stages many times. Sometimes they also limit the overall work in the progress at a given work flow level. To optimize things further and to help the things in prioritization, many Kanban teams in SAFE also use class of services by way of identifying something is expedited. So it has to be done first. Other work should stop if this has come. Or there could be some items which are fixed date based. Now, if you have committed something in your PI planning meeting, and that particular feature or component is needed by other teams in order to deliver their own commitment, you may end up having a fixed state type work items. So you may also apply the fixed state type of work items. Now, what is the difference? In a Kanban team, you may have a work item which may get started on week 1 and it may finish on week 3 or week 4. So you don't have to split the items in two and make it fit into 2 weeks sprint or 2 weeks iteration. The Scrum teams in SAFe will end up doing that. They will have all items which they start developing, that item should fix into 2 weeks boundary. But the Kanban team may have that flexibility. They may not see a use of splitting unnecessary items to make them fit into 2 weeks. It can just keep flowing, and whenever it gets finished during the PI boundaries, it achieves its objective. And that is the reason it may use fixed state class of service frequently. So rather than saying in sprint 2 we can say by week 3 this should be done, and it may get started on a week 1 itself. And that's the flexibility these Kanban teams are getting. Now, if you see across, this kind of structure is in my personal experience find is useful when you are kind of picking up the work or providing services to other teams. Now, this is something we looked at, how a Kanban team can operate in SAFe. Now, there are some constraints. The Kanban team on a SAFe still need to follow the overall framework of Scaled Agile framework. They are part of the release train. They are not independent teams. Now, in order to participate in the overall release train, they need to still doing planning and forecasting at a PI boundaries level. So, typically the PI boundaries is a 10-week PI boundary. So, all Scrum and Kanban team participate in a PI planning meeting, and they do forecast and commit their work for these 10-week boundaries. The difference is, the Scrum teams will divide those commitments, those team backlog into 2 weeks sprint, and they will give demo at the end of 2 weeks. But the Kanban team may keep working across this time window of say 10 weeks, but 9 and 10th week is inspect and adapt. So I can say for the 8 weeks, so they may have things coming at a later stage, but still they need to plan and they need to commit for the overall boundary. And they also need to participate in a program level events. So the Scrum teams at the end of a iteration, they produce a demo, and this all work goes at a program level, and you produce a system demo. So the Kanban teams also participate in the system demo. Their work also goes inside that particular 2-week frequency system demo. So all in all, the Kanban team also end up doing estimation of their work item, and those estimations should be normalized with the Scrum teams, because in a SAFe environment we do have an aggregated velocity, aggregated forecasting, aggregated sizing of the complete release train. So we cannot leave a Kanban team as a different team who is not using estimation and who is not participating in forecasting process. So that is something, is a rule, or that is something, a constraint which is applied on Kanban team. Rest, they do have a flexibility in that window, and that is why we use them, or that is why the shared teams or the platform teams uses the Kanban a lot.